Hair loss does not begin in your bathroom mirror. It begins silently, invisibly, deep within your body, long before the first strand falls into your hand. Every time you notice thinning hair, your body has already been whispering warnings through your blood vessels, your immune system, your hormones, and your cells, because hair is not just cosmetic, it is biological evidence of what is happening beneath your skin. Your hair follicles are among the most metabolically active structures in your entire body. They divide rapidly, they demand constant oxygen, they require uninterrupted blood flow, they depend on precise hormonal signals. And when any one of those systems weakens, your hair is often the first to suffer. Research shows that reduced microcirculation, tiny impairments in the smallest blood vessels, can starve hair follicles of oxygen and nutrients. Without adequate blood supply, follicles shrink in a process called miniaturization, producing thinner and shorter strands until growth eventually stops. Think about that. Before your hair falls out, it slowly suffocates. Studies on androgenic alopecia, the most common form of hair loss in both men and women, consistently show decreased blood flow in affected scalp areas. When circulation declines, the anagen phase, the active growth phase of hair, shortens dramatically. Healthy hair requires a growth phase that lasts years. Compromised follicles may only sustain months. And what damages circulation? Chronic inflammation. Low-grade inflammation, the kind triggered by poor diet, stress, excess sugar, and processed food, silently injures the delicate lining of your blood vessels, the endothelium. When this lining becomes dysfunctional, blood vessels lose their ability to dilate properly. That means less oxygen reaches your scalp. Hair follicles are extremely sensitive to oxygen deprivation. In fact, laboratory studies show that reduced oxygen levels disrupt the energy production of follicle cells, impairing their ability to produce strong keratin fibers. Inflammation does something even more dangerous. It activates immune signaling molecules called cytokines. Elevated inflammatory cytokines have been detected around shrinking hair follicles, accelerating their regression into the resting phase. This is not just cosmetic thinning. This is a biological stress response happening at the cellular level. And then there is oxidative stress. Every day, your body produces free radicals, unstable molecules that damage DNA, proteins, and cell membranes. When antioxidant defenses are overwhelmed, oxidative stress builds. Hair follicle stem cells are especially vulnerable to oxidative damage. These stem cells are responsible for regenerating new hair shafts. When they are injured, hair renewal slows. When damage accumulates, regrowth weakens. Aging accelerates this process, but lifestyle accelerates it even more. High blood sugar spikes generate oxidative stress. Poor sleep increases inflammatory markers. Chronic psychological stress elevates cortisol, which can prematurely push follicles into the shedding phase known as telogen effluvium. In other words, your hair listens to your internal environment, and one of the most overlooked factors in hair loss is metabolic health. Insulin resistance, a condition affecting millions of adults worldwide, has been strongly associated with hair thinning. Elevated insulin levels increase androgen activity in genetically susceptible individuals. These androgens, particularly dihydrotestosterone or DHT, bind to receptors in hair follicles and gradually shrink them. But here's what many people don't realize. Insulin resistance also damages microvascular circulation and increases systemic inflammation. So the problem isn't just hormones, it's vascular health, it's inflammatory signaling, it's nutrient delivery. Your hair follicle is like a factory. It requires raw materials, amino acids, minerals, oxygen, growth factors, delivered precisely and consistently. If blood flow falters, the factory slows. If inflammation rises, production becomes defective. If nutrients are deficient, structure weakens. And if hormonal signals are disrupted, the factory may shut down altogether. Research published in dermatological journals has shown that individuals with cardiovascular risk factors, including hypertension, elevated cholesterol, and metabolic syndrome, are more likely to experience early onset hair thinning. Why? Because hair follicles depend on the same vascular network that protects your heart. When your blood vessels suffer, your hair often reveals it first. There is also growing evidence linking gut health to hair vitality. Your gut microbiome regulates inflammation, nutrient absorption, and immune balance. When the microbiome becomes imbalanced, a condition called dysbiosis, inflammatory molecules can circulate systemically, affecting distant tissues, including the scalp. Poor gut health can impair absorption of zinc, iron, biotin, and protein, all critical for hair production. Iron deficiency alone is one of the most common reversible causes of hair shedding worldwide, and yet many people treat hair loss only from the outside. They apply topical solutions, they change shampoos, they try cosmetic concealers, but hair is a reflection, not a root cause. It reflects the state of your circulation. It reflects the level of inflammation in your body. It reflects your metabolic balance. It reflects the health of your stem cells. Scientific imaging of thinning scalp tissue often reveals perifollicular inflammation, immune cells clustering around the hair root. This inflammatory environment gradually damages the follicle's regenerative capacity. And once follicle stem cells are depleted, regrowth becomes increasingly difficult. But here is the hopeful truth. Hair follicles are remarkably resilient when supported early. Studies show that improving endothelial function, the health of your blood vessels, enhances microcirculation to peripheral tissues, lowering systemic inflammation, reduces cytokine signaling around follicles. Balancing blood sugar stabilizes androgen activity. Increasing antioxidant intake protects stem cell integrity. When these internal systems improve, follicles can re-enter healthier growth cycles. This is why focusing only on the scalp misses the bigger picture. Your scalp is an extension of your circulatory system. Your hair growth cycle is regulated by internal hormones. Your follicle strength depends on nutrient density in your bloodstream. Everything is connected. When people say hair loss is just genetics, they are only partially correct. Genetics may load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. Gene expression is influenced by inflammation, diet, stress, and metabolic health. Epigenetic research shows that environmental factors can activate or silence biological pathways related to aging and tissue regeneration. That includes hair follicles. Your body constantly evaluates whether conditions are safe for growth. If inflammation is high, resources are diverted toward survival, not cosmetic functions. If nutrient intake is inadequate, non-essential processes like hair production are reduced. If stress hormones remain elevated, the growth phase shortens. Hair becomes thinner not because your body fails you, but because it prioritizes survival. So when you begin to notice shedding, it is not merely a surface issue, it is a signal that circulation may need support, a signal that inflammation may be rising, a signal that metabolic balance may be shifting. And signals are powerful because they give you time to respond. Scientific studies consistently show that interventions targeting vascular health, anti-inflammatory nutrition, and metabolic stability improve markers associated with hair growth quality. Because when you nourish your internal systems, you nourish your follicles. When you protect your blood vessels, you protect oxygen delivery. When you calm inflammation, you protect stem cells. When you stabilize hormones, you preserve growth cycles. This is not about chasing quick fixes. It is about understanding that hair health is whole body health. Every strand of hair is a biological thread connected to your cardiovascular system, your immune system, your endocrine system, and your gut. And when those systems thrive, your hair has the environment it needs to thrive as well. So the next time you look in the mirror and notice thinning, do not just see loss. See information. See an opportunity to strengthen your internal foundation. Because hair does not fall randomly, it responds to biology, and biology, when supported correctly, has an extraordinary capacity to heal, regenerate, and restore balance from the inside out. If you want stronger, thicker hair, you cannot ignore what your follicles are made of, because every strand growing from your scalp is constructed from nutrients delivered through your bloodstream. Hair is not lifeless. It is a product of living cells dividing faster than almost any other cells in your body. And when those cells lack the right building blocks, the result is predictable: weaker strands, slower growth, increased shedding. This is where walnuts become far more than a snack. They become biological support for the systems that manufacture your hair. Walnuts are one of the richest plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids, specifically alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. Omega-3s are not trendy nutrients. They are structural components of your cell membranes. Every hair follicle cell is wrapped in a membrane that must remain flexible and functional for proper nutrient exchange. Research shows omega-3 fatty acids improve membrane fluidity, reduce inflammatory signaling, and enhance endothelial function, the health of your blood vessels. And healthy blood vessels mean stronger nutrient delivery to your scalp. In clinical studies, omega-3 supplementation has been shown to reduce hair shedding and increase hair density in individuals experiencing thinning. Why? Because inflammation shrinks follicles, and omega-3s calm inflammation at its source. Chronic inflammation activates molecules like tumor necrosis factor alpha and interleukins that disrupt the hair growth cycle. Walnuts naturally counteract this process, but omega-3s are only the beginning. Walnuts are also loaded with antioxidants, powerful compounds that defend your cells from oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is not a vague concept. It is measurable cellular damage caused by unstable molecules called free radicals. Studies examining balding scalp tissue show elevated oxidative stress markers around weakened follicles. That means hair thinning is, in part, a consequence of cellular injury. Walnuts contain polyphenols such as ellagic acid and gamma-tocopherol, a unique form of vitamin E that protects lipid membranes from oxidation. Vitamin E deficiency has been associated with increased hair loss in both animal and human studies. In fact, one clinical trial found that individuals supplementing with tocotrienols, a form of vitamin E, experienced a 34% increase in hair count compared to placebo. Protection from oxidative stress preserves follicle stem cells, and those stem cells are responsible for regenerating new hair shafts again and again throughout your life. Damage those stem cells and regrowth weakens. Protect them, and resilience improves. Walnuts also provide zinc, one of the most critical minerals for hair growth. Zinc deficiency has been directly linked to telogen effluvium, a form of hair shedding triggered by metabolic stress. Zinc supports DNA replication and protein synthesis, both essential for rapidly dividing follicle cells. Without adequate zinc, hair becomes brittle, weak, and prone to falling out prematurely. Walnuts deliver this mineral naturally, along with selenium, another antioxidant micronutrient that protects cells from damage. Selenium supports thyroid function, and thyroid hormones regulate the speed of your metabolism, including hair production. Both hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism are strongly associated with hair thinning. Balanced micronutrients help stabilize this system. Then there is copper. Copper is often overlooked, but it plays a critical role in melanin production, the pigment that gives your hair its color. Low copper levels have been associated with premature graying. Copper also contributes to the formation of collagen and elastin, structural proteins that maintain scalp integrity and follicle strength. Strong follicles anchor hair more securely. Weak connective tissue allows shedding to accelerate, and we cannot ignore protein. Hair is composed primarily of keratin, a structural protein built from amino acids. If your diet lacks adequate protein, your body prioritizes vital organs over hair production. Clinical evidence shows that protein malnutrition leads to diffuse hair thinning and slowed regrowth. Walnuts provide plant-based protein, along with essential amino acids needed to construct keratin fibers. When follicles receive consistent amino acid supply, strand thickness improves. But here is where the science becomes even more fascinating. Walnuts influence blood sugar control. Why does that matter? Because unstable blood sugar increases insulin levels. Elevated insulin stimulates androgen activity, and excess androgen signaling, particularly dihydrotestosterone, contributes to follicle miniaturization in genetically susceptible individuals. In multiple metabolic studies, participants who added walnuts to their diet demonstrated improved insulin sensitivity and better glycemic control. Stable blood sugar means fewer hormonal fluctuations. Fewer hormonal fluctuations mean less stress on follicles. Hair growth depends on hormonal precision. Walnuts also support gut health. Emerging research shows that consuming walnuts increases beneficial gut bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids. These fatty acids reduce systemic inflammation and strengthen the intestinal barrier. A strong gut barrier prevents inflammatory molecules from leaking into circulation. Lower systemic inflammation translates into a healthier scalp environment. Nutrient absorption improves, mineral levels stabilize, inflammatory stress decreases, and follicles function more efficiently. In other words, walnuts create internal conditions where hair has the opportunity to thrive. This is not cosmetic marketing, this is nutritional biochemistry. Each handful delivers a combination of healthy fats, antioxidants, trace minerals, and protein working together, not in isolation. Synergy matters. When nutrients work in harmony, their biological impact multiplies. Omega-3s enhance antioxidant function. Antioxidants protect cellular membranes. Minerals enable enzymatic reactions. Protein supplies structural material. Together, they create an environment that supports the entire hair growth cycle, and the hair growth cycle is delicate. It consists of the anagen phase, when hair actively grows, the catagen phase, a brief transition, and the telogen phase, when hair rests before shedding. Nutritional stress can prematurely shift hairs from anagen into telogen. That means shedding accelerates. Supporting follicle biology helps extend the anagen phase, the period of growth and thickness. In scientific terms, nutrient sufficiency enhances follicular proliferation and delays regression. In simple terms, it helps hair stay stronger for longer. Now, will walnuts regrow hair overnight? No food can override severe genetic programming instantly. But what they can do is improve the biological terrain in which your genes operate. They reduce inflammatory pressure, they improve vascular flow, they stabilize metabolic signaling, they protect stem cells from oxidative damage, and when internal conditions improve, follicles often respond. Hair density may gradually increase, strand strength may improve, shedding may slow. These changes do not happen in days. Hair grows approximately half an inch per month, meaning meaningful improvement requires patience. But beneath the surface, transformation begins immediately. The moment you nourish your cells with the right compounds, biochemical pathways shift, inflammatory markers decline, endothelial function improves, antioxidant defenses strengthen. Your body begins reallocating resources toward regeneration instead of defense, and that shift is powerful because hair is not separate from your overall health. It is a reflection of it. When your cardiovascular system functions optimally, your scalp benefits. When your metabolic health stabilizes, your follicles receive consistent signals. When your antioxidant intake rises, cellular damage decreases. Walnuts deliver all of this in one simple, natural form. A small handful contains compounds that target multiple pathways involved in hair thinning, not through artificial stimulation, not through chemical suppression, but through nourishment. And nourishment is sustainable. When you choose foods that support circulation, reduce inflammation, balance hormones, and protect cells, you are not just supporting hair. You are strengthening your biological foundation. Stronger vessels, healthier cells, balanced signaling, resilient follicles. The science is clear. Hair health is not superficial, it is systemic. And when you give your body the nutrients it needs, consistently, patiently, intentionally, you create the internal environment where thick, vibrant hair is not forced. It is supported. The difference between thinning hair and stronger hair is often not a miracle treatment. It is consistency, not intensity, not extremes, not overnight promises. Consistency, because your hair does not respond to what you eat once. It responds to what you eat repeatedly. Every single day, your body rebuilds tissue. Every single day, hair follicles cycle through growth, transition, and rest. And every single day, your bloodstream delivers information to those follicles in the form of nutrients, hormones, and inflammatory signals. If that information is chaotic, your hair becomes fragile. If that information is stable, your hair becomes resilient. Research on nutritional interventions repeatedly shows the same pattern. Benefits appear when intake is consistent over time, not sporadic, not occasional, but steady. Hair grows approximately 1 centimeter per month. That means what you eat today will influence what you see in the mirror 3 months from now. The hair you are looking at today was built from yesterday's biology, and this is why one handful of walnuts once a week will not transform your scalp, but one handful every single day might. Clinical studies evaluating nut consumption often use a standard serving of about 1 ounce per day, roughly 7 to 9 walnuts. This amount has been shown to improve endothelial function, reduce LDL oxidation, lower inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein, and improve insulin sensitivity. Those changes are not cosmetic. They directly influence the biological systems that regulate hair growth. When endothelial function improves, microcirculation improves. When microcirculation improves, oxygen delivery to follicles increases. When oxygen delivery increases, cellular energy production rises. Hair follicles require enormous amounts of energy. In fact, rapidly dividing matrix cells in the hair bulb are among the most energy-demanding cells in the body. Without sufficient ATP, cellular energy, keratin production slows. Consistency ensures that these energy pathways remain supported. But there is another reason daily intake matters. Inflammation does not disappear overnight. Chronic low-grade inflammation accumulates over years. It is driven by repeated blood sugar spikes, processed food intake, stress hormones, and sedentary behavior. Reducing inflammation requires repeated exposure to anti-inflammatory compounds. Omega-3 fatty acids, polyphenols, vitamin E, the nutrients found in walnuts, exert cumulative effects. They incorporate into cell membranes over time. They gradually alter inflammatory signaling pathways. You cannot rebuild membrane composition in a day, but over weeks, dietary fats become part of your cellular structure. That structural shift changes how your cells respond to stress. Hair follicles are extremely sensitive to inflammatory stress. Studies examining scalp biopsies from individuals with pattern hair loss show parafollicular inflammation, immune activity surrounding the follicle. When inflammation persists, follicles miniaturize. Miniaturization does not happen in a single event. It happens gradually, and reversing that environment also requires gradual correction. This is where patience becomes powerful, because visible hair improvement lags behind biological improvement. Within days of improving diet, inflammatory markers in the bloodstream can begin to decline. Within weeks, endothelial function can measurably improve. Within months, hair cycles may begin to stabilize. But the mirror will not show you cellular repair happening beneath the surface. This delay discourages many people. They try something for 2 weeks. They see no visible change. They stop. But hair biology does not operate on social media timelines. The anagen phase, the active growth phase, can last 2 to 7 years. Telogen, the resting phase, lasts around 3 months before shedding occurs. If you improve internal conditions today, you may need 1 full cycle before visual density improves. That means 8 to 12 weeks, sometimes longer. And that is not failure, that is physiology. Consistency also stabilizes blood sugar patterns. When walnuts are eaten daily, their combination of healthy fats, fiber, and protein slows glucose absorption. Clinical trials show improved post-meal glycemic control when nuts are incorporated regularly into meals. Stable blood sugar means stable insulin levels. Stable insulin means reduced androgen overstimulation in susceptible individuals. Reduced androgen pressure means less follicular shrinkage over time. But this stability only happens when the pattern is repeated. 1 day of balanced blood sugar cannot override 6 days of spikes. The body responds to averages. Hair responds to averages. Your follicles are calculating your habits, not your intentions. Consistency also ensures adequate micronutrient availability. Zinc, selenium, copper, biotin. These nutrients must remain within optimal ranges in the bloodstream. Deficiencies develop gradually. Correction also occurs gradually. When intake is steady, blood levels stabilize. When levels stabilize, enzymatic processes within follicle cells function more efficiently. Keratin synthesis improves, strand integrity strengthens, and shedding caused by nutritional stress declines. There is also a psychological dimension to consistency. Chronic stress elevates cortisol. Elevated cortisol can prematurely push hair follicles into the telogen phase, triggering diffuse shedding known as telogen effluvium. Adopting consistent, structured dietary habits signals stability to your nervous system. Predictable nourishment reduces metabolic stress. Metabolic stability reduces hormonal volatility, and hormonal balance protects hair growth cycles. Your body thrives on rhythm. Circadian rhythms regulate hormone release, cell repair, and tissue regeneration. When eating patterns are erratic, sleep is inconsistent, and stress is chronic, those rhythms become disrupted. Hair growth becomes collateral damage. But daily, consistent nourishment restores rhythm, and rhythm restores resilience. Research on Mediterranean dietary patterns, which include regular nut consumption, shows lower rates of chronic inflammatory diseases, improved vascular health, and better metabolic profiles. Populations adhering to these patterns consistently over years show slower biological aging markers. Hair aging is not separate from biological aging. When you consistently support anti-inflammatory pathways, you are not only protecting your heart, you are protecting your follicles from accelerated decline. There is also the matter of dosage. More is not better. Excessive intake of any food can disrupt balance. 1 ounce per day has been widely studied and shown to confer cardiovascular and metabolic benefits. Beyond that, calorie excess may counteract metabolic gains. Consistency in the right amount is what produces results, not extremes. And extremes often create metabolic stress that worsens hair loss rather than improves it. Moderation sustained over time is biologically powerful. Consider this: hair follicles are constantly deciding whether conditions are safe for growth. If inflammation is high, they conserve resources. If nutrients are scarce, they slow production. If hormones fluctuate wildly, they shift phases prematurely. But if signals remain stable day after day, follicles remain in growth mode longer. Longer growth phase means thicker appearance. Thicker appearance builds confidence, and confidence reduces stress, which further supports growth. Consistency creates a feedback loop. Improved internal biology supports better hair. Better hair reinforces healthy habits. Healthy habits strengthen internal biology. This is not about chasing rapid transformation. It is about building an environment that allows your genetics to express their healthiest potential. Even in genetically predisposed individuals, environmental factors influence the rate and severity of hair thinning. Epigenetic research demonstrates that diet, inflammation, and oxidative stress can influence gene expression. You may not control the genes you inherited, but you influence how loudly they speak, and consistent nourishment turns down the volume of inflammatory triggers. The truth is simple, but powerful. 7 to 9 walnuts per day. Not glamorous, not dramatic, but repeated daily. That small action influences circulation, inflammation, hormone balance, antioxidant defenses, and nutrient sufficiency. 5 systems, 1 habit, repeated consistently. Over time, these small biological shifts compound. Compounding is not just a financial concept, it is biological. Small improvements in endothelial function compound into better circulation. Small reductions in inflammation compound into cellular protection. Small improvements in insulin sensitivity compound into hormonal stability. And these compounded benefits create the internal conditions where hair has the opportunity to thicken rather than thin. You may not see it immediately, but beneath the surface, your body responds. Cell membranes become more resilient. Stem cells become more protected. Follicles remain active longer. And months later, when you run your hand through your hair and notice less shedding, that change did not happen in that moment. It happened in the quiet repetition of daily choices. Consistency is not exciting. It is powerful, because biology rewards repetition. And when you repeat nourishment every single day, you are not forcing hair growth. You are supporting it.